The NBN hasn't had the best start to May. Actually, they didn't even have a great end to April. But that's not stopping them making May their water lilies. This week glimpsed the reality of working for the NBN. Many called it a small subset of the work group, and NBN Co themselves said none of these strikes will affect customers' booked appointments. An unfortunate reality of a subcontractor's existence, and even more so for an entity such as a national provider of broadband. So with no surprises, the strikes on Monday morning happened. They called out fair pay and a better booking system. And NBN Co replied with, please bear with us as we improve the job booking system. Updates soon to come this week. So there you have it. That's what makes the front page these days. But what hasn't made the front page of Murdoch's daddy blog is NBN Co's pricing review. Don't take my word for it. I haven't read a newspaper article in decades. But it happens to be the same amount of time a momentous event like this had happened around the same time, NBN Co's pricing review with the ACCC. Let's talk the Wild West of loopholes that let NBN Co do whatever they want with wholesale pricing. Welcome to a special Dirt Report, maybe midweek, maybe not. Let's roll the intro. It was a warm summer day, business as usual at NBN Co headquarters, keyboards tapping away, cash being spent, and copper being ordered in by the kilometer. Chef Ramsay would be furious if the same people stocked his kitchen with rotten food.
Dog shit.
Copper to NBN Co is like ice to an ice farmer. Useless since refrigerator technology has become affordable. But enough of this yellow brick road. Every 2 years, NBN Co does a so-called pricing review. We hear promises of change, but we get, and by we, I mean RSPs mainly, get some marginal shifts in font size, literally. You may be wondering what makes this year's price review so different. Well, if you guessed an external arbitrator is coming in to sort this show out, then 10 points to Gryffindor and 5 points to you. The ACCC has been summoned, and the last time they were involved was over a decade ago. Coincidentally, it was also the last time pricing was actually working pretty well. The wholesale pricing review process is an opportunity for the RSPs to see where the NBN is heading, plan around it, and deal with it. Generally, NBN Co comes with some comments and ideas that may or may not hinder the RSP's business, but generally it has been one step in the direction of making it more complicated and no steps in the direction of a better world. For example, this review, paper number 2, NBN Co provided 2 options for these picky RSPs. I mean, 2 options, how generous of them. Let me summarize. Option A was bleh, and option B was meh. The RSPs didn't particularly like either option presented to them, so the smartasses at Downtown NBN wrote in the report, industry feedback did not provide a clear preference, so we went with option A. As you may know, the CVC is an extremely contentious issue. The bandwidth-based charge has created real problems for ISPs, with spikes in usage, e.g. when a Fortnite update is live and all those kids update at once. Well, the RSPs will more than likely pay overcharges to NBN Co. Now imagine how often these things happen and how you can plan around it. The human malware pandemic did help the situation. The NBN generously provided 40% extra CVC overage for RSPs and delivered a real change. Finally, it felt like the usage was in the right place, overage was a thing of the past, and then there was a Call of Duty Warzone update. NBN has admitted that the 40% increase has reduced problems across the board, and RSPs are happy with it. So what the NBN did next will absolutely shock you. We'll be right back after these messages. Is your internet slow? Does the connection drop out daily, hourly? Are you still getting charged for a service you're not receiving? Then go f*** yourself. Previously on NBN Shenanigans. So what the NBN did next will absolutely shock you. Well, the shocking truth is they canned the 40% bandwidth bonus and we're back to pre-COVID levels. So if your internet speeds are suffering, well, that's why. It's bad now, but even with the extra 40%, the usage peaks were hurting RSPs, and it's hurting no matter the size of said RSP. Though Telstra has certainly more cash in the bank than most. The February 2021 pricing was an absolute mess according to some RSPs, and the new pricing is screwy at best. The complexity of CVC is ever growing, but why are we in this situation? Well, let me take you back to the year 2010. The decade started with tragedy as a magnitude 7 earthquake rocked Haiti on 12th January, leaving 220,000 people dead, while TikTok by Keisha with a dollar sign instead of an S was blasted at most nightclubs throughout those 12 months. Then BP killed billions of aquatic wildlife with the Deepwater Horizon spill, and back then Prince William still had a full set of hair and some hope for it to stay that way. How times have changed. Amongst these tragedies, there was a little government initiative, a twinkle in Australia's eye, to connect all Australians to this fancy thing the kids were loving, the internet. I remember standing in a grocery line reading a PC Mag article all about the NBN. I dreamt of seeing the speeds being promised and the connectivity. Maybe one day, I thought. 2010 was the last time the ACCC stepped into the NBN co-pricing world. It was the golden era of NBN, full of promise and hope. In fact, the pricing was so well aligned with the future, it felt like a DeLorean ute full of happy times. The ACCC set out rules around the wholesale structure, and it seemed to work quite well. The problem was that NBN Co wanted a bit more cash. Why would they need cash? Well, their executives were talking around the office, unable to tell the time. They needed a wrist-worn timekeeping device to help. Maybe a couple of holiday homes or a new yacht. So what did the NBN do? Well, they discovered a backdoor, a cheat, a trick, a loophole in the design of the wholesale pricing. Under the guise of discounts and special deals, they started to play with the CVC and stretch it. NBN Co really wanted to increase prices on their new plans, but they couldn't only create new plans if they were somehow discounted from the old according to the rules set out by the ACCC. You see, the ARPU, or rather average revenue per user, needed to be around $52 to make the national broadband project financially viable, but even back in 2018, NBN Co struggled to get it close to $43. RSPs were selling a lot more of the 12-down plans because there were a multitude of non-technical customers who were there to just connect to the internet and have a phone line. And I bet it would also make you mad to find out many folks who got fiber in their home in the first round were elderly and were buying 12 down 1-up plans. Even back then, the pricing wasn't perfect. The ACCC approved plans that the NBN came up with, as long as they had a discount, and their greatest creation, the CVC, started to create problems. This meant that RSPs would skimp on the CVC, which created what we now know as congestion, slow speed due to lack of bandwidth, aka CVC. This meant Australians blamed the NBN, and in part, sure, their use of the CVC was the fuel, but our RSPs lit the match. So the NBN created the 50 down 20 up plan. The special sauce was the 50% extra CVC, which meant RSPs would be pushed to sell these plans instead to make up for the CVC shortfall on their 12 down 1 up plans. In 1932, Bureau of Sugar Experiment Stations plant pathologist Arthur Bell attended a conference in Puerto Rico where he learned of and then reported on the apparent success of the American toad, Bufo marineus, in reducing population of cane beetles. The rest is history. After all, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. If you know what I'm talking about, the Queensland stuff. There were some unintended consequences. Out of the frying pan and into the fire, as they say. I'm trying to make up these things as I go. The NBN had their official pricing, but RSPs do not pay this price. They pay these oddball special discounted plans that are not what the ACCC set out a decade ago, and so now the ACCC has circled back because even they're seeing the ridiculousness of the situation, and NBN Co has gone down the rabbit hole so far they cannot justify why. It's absolute madness. It's no use now. NBN Co cannot pretend to follow the ACCC pricing and do what they do. There's hardly enough sensibility left to make a respectable pricing plan. Leaving Wonderland, we come back to today, where the ACCC is back in the picture after a decade. This pricing review could bring back a lot of stability and simplicity. You shouldn't need a PhD to navigate NBN Co's pricing model because it just shouldn't be that complicated. Unfortunately, the politics of it all is part of why it is so complicated. This escalated after it was leaked that NBN Co had developed and modeled a flat structure to their pricing model, even removed the CVC altogether. The pollies that be were very upset that their dear NBN had gone and done such a dirty old thing. And now you know why the ACCC being involved is a big deal. After a decade of scheming, loopholes and manipulation, with little to no change, is leading down to this point in time. The hope is that the SAU will turn around a system that has tangled itself beyond recognition. But the ACCC doesn't have the best track record in making things simpler either. Big thanks to Damien Ivory of Lontel for his help in unwinding this decade-old puzzle. Friends, thank you very much for watching. Make sure to like this video if you learned something new, and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you all in another one. Bye!